What's going on, everybody? Good morning, good evening, or wherever you are, and whatever time it is. Welcome back to yet another video with me, Immersioholic. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 3 of my Carthaginian campaign for the Divided Impera overhaul mod for Total War Rome 2. Today, we continue with, of course, the first Punic War. Perhaps the only Punic War that will happen in this campaign. Who knows? Although I am not trying to rush beating Rome, but for whatever reason, them and all of the Sicilians are hell-bent on the eradication of Carthage, the true master of the Western Mediterranean. In the last episode, we began launching counterattacks against the Syracusans via our navies, and so we'll be beginning this episode in the exact same manner. They launched a massive army of their elite hoplites. They even brought siege equipment and very well-trained mercenaries towards the city of Corrales on Sardinia. Thankfully, the Second Republican fleet, led by Hanno of the Hannonid dynasty, one of the best admirals of our time, has managed to catch them before they can land on the island. And because they are only on transports and they are unescorted, they will be annihilated extremely quickly. Now, this is going to be one of many battles where I fight it manually, but I'm not going to show you guys because a navy versus a bunch of transports is extremely easy to handle. So instead, I thought I'd show you guys a few little shots of our navy in action at the very least, because it is very beautiful to watch. It's a majestic fleet. Our ships are gorgeous and they are extremely deadly. You can see our navy creeping towards the enemy here. They form up a standard two-line formation, typically in a staggered formation, so our ships can slide through the gaps when the first initial line begins contact with the enemy. You can see right here, the first line of contact does make it. The enemy transports immediately begin sinking, and then the second line of our formation passes through the gaps because of our staggered formation, and they will take out the entire second line of enemy transports, wiping out more than half of the enemy army in our initial thrust towards them. And pretty quickly, the Syracusans begin fleeing the field, and while their crossbowmen do try to put up a valiant defense right here while they're trying to flee the field, there is absolutely no way they are outmaneuvering or outrunning the master of the Western Mediterranean Sea, Hanno, who seems to be doing very well in building up the Hannonid dynasty's reputation. Perhaps they will challenge Barcus for power if they continue doing so well. And there we have it with a heroic victory. We took a few casualties because of their elite skirmishes, but overall not a big deal whatsoever. What is a big deal though is that the Syracusans have yet again lost another massive army for basically no cost to us. So the Syracusans that we did capture will be well served working in the slave markets of Carthage itself. In the meantime though, the people of Acragas, that's right, the Sicilians who were supposedly liberated by the Syracusans, are trying to launch an attack against the very same fleet, once again led by Hanno. Hanno, however, understands that despite the Acragas' will to fight and their motivated spirits, they are fools, and they are once again only attacking with transport, so that will be an easy auto resolve. Hanno wipes out two massive armies within a single turn, ladies and gentlemen. Sicily is looking ripe for the taking, so we must capitalize on this and get transports over there as quickly as possible. Thankfully, with the Second Republican fleet close by, we can have them sail back towards Carthage, where we have Gisco, once again of the Hannonid dynasties. The Hannonids have some excellent generals and admirals during this era, apparently. He has an army that is prepared, and just as he's focusing on leveling up and improving himself, he will launch his transport ships in conjunction with the Second Fleet, and they will once again sail back towards Sicily, where Hanno initially began to make a name for himself. So now he has to return, fix the situation up there, hopefully restore Carthaginian dominance to the island, which is of course going to be crucial to maintaining our control over the west. In the meantime though, the Romans are coming at us and trying to beat us at our own game. They have a relatively decently sized fleet coming towards us. So to try and make sure that we don't underestimate them, we're going to call back our Carthaginian 3rd Fleet. This is the smaller fleet that we do have. It's led by a leader, well not a leader, but one of the, I guess, commanders of the Magunan dynasty, Macinthan. Macinthan has a smaller fleet, as I said, so he's going to be staying very close to our 2nd Republican fleet, while they escort Gisco and his army across to Sicily. Thankfully, Sicily is not very far from Carthage at all, so they only have to go one single turn across the ocean. And then within that turn, we can also attack Acragas itself. So, with the support of naval ships nearby, Gisco does lead an attack on the city of Acragas. He ends up attacking a general who is outside of the city, thus forcing the garrison to come out and help him. I believe we fought this battle manually, but again, not worth showing. Either was hardly enough units on the field to cause any issue, and they were all just militia tier units. So, actually, despite us losing Sicily in the last video, we are back with a vengeance. People of Acragas will certainly be put to the sword for the betrayal of their former Carthaginian masters. They will be killed. They won't even be given the grant. They won't even be given the mercy of being given into Carthaginian slavery, and instead the city will be put to the sword, and we will loot it once we order resolve it away right here. A decisive victory is had, and while we do lose 100 men, it is nothing compared to the price of restoring the potential, at least, of Carthaginian dominance over Sicily. This is just a foothold into Sicily. However, the Syracusans are not looking very good. They have Panormos to the north, which is completely open for the taking. It's only a small garrison in there. And they have one main army that is being recruited in Syracuse. But however, the Romans are not going to sit by and let us do as we will in the Western Mediterranean. And instead of actually trying to challenge us in Sicily, the Romans launched a naval assault on one of our ports more towards Libya. Now this was a completely surprising tactic, something we have not yet seen by the enemy, except for Acragas launching their little peasant military militia incursion. We do manage to order resolve the Romans away. However, seeing the Romans initially begin their invasion against Carthage by instantly attacking one of our pretty important port cities, that is going to be very concerning, and once again, we just can't underestimate them. As such, Hanno will take his fleet back south towards the city of Thapsos, where he will chase down the remnants of the first Roman Republican fleet, and they will be wiped out. To a man, their ships will be utterly destroyed, and the Romans will be sent back to Rome, or they will serve Neptune in the depths of the Mediterranean. And what I mean by that is that we will actually ransom them, and we'll be ransoming the Romans for all of our victories for quite a while, because I do want to try and build better relations. However, someone who we are not building relations with is the Syracusans. They launch a pretty massive counterattack against Gisco's army. He is once again at the banks of the river of Acragas, just to the east of the city. The same river that we lost Sicily to previously will hopefully be the same river that will give us Sicily back. Let's get on the battlefield. And here we are on the battlefield, ladies and gentlemen. Very interesting battle ahead. We do have some reinforcements coming in behind Gisco, so hopefully that will help him out. This is going to be the exact same battle map that we fought on in the last video, so it's not ideal. However, it does mean that we know the terrain, and we have a better army than what we did before. This army is a lot more professional. We can see that we have some very well-disciplined hoplites. We also have some ferocious Gauls who will be serving us. We have a pretty large contingent of them, and we also have some Iberians who are extremely skilled and pretty well equipped overall. So they will hopefully work really well in conjunction with each other to force the Syracusans back across the river, or even better, wipe them out. Looking at an overview of the battlefield, though, we have two major crossings. One to the east over here, where we will expect the Syracusans to come in from the north, of course. Then on the south side of the river, we have our Iberian and Gallic, I guess, little confederation almost set up, ready to receive the enemy. Meanwhile, further to the west, we have the major crossing. This is where the Syracusans crossed before, and they did well. So this is where we expect them to cross again. Again, they will be coming in from the north side. To try and counter this, we have a solid wall of hoplites ready to receive the enemy directly in the center to the south of the crossing. On the right-hand side, we'll have our archers split off a little bit. And then on the left-hand side, we hope to have our small Iberian contingent flank around the enemy. At least that is the plan. You can see our hoplites are in the front. In the rear, we have some Libyan swordsmen. On the left-hand side, we have a single unit of Iberians, although hopefully there'll be enough to help out. And then we have 2 units of Numidian mercenary archers on the right-hand flank. We also have Gisco himself on the battlefield, getting a little bit more veteranized. You can see as he continues to level up, he gets more and more armor, weapons, cool little changes to his outfit. Thanks to the AAA Generals mod, links are in the description for all my sub-mods, FYI. But he's starting to look pretty badass. Meanwhile, at the other crossing, we have the Iberians in the front, 3 sets of them, and then right behind them we have 2 sets of Gallic units, primarily Gauls who have come down to serve us in the Mediterranean. The main plan is to send our Iberians and Gauls across the bridge and then have the cavalry also split off into the forest to try and search out any Syracusan units. Once again, we are expecting the main contingent of the enemy army to come across this crossing up here because it's larger, wider, allows them to use their numbers a little bit more effectively. However, if Syracusans catch us off guard by switching up their tactics completely, and instead they march for the more eastern option where they have to go across this small rickety wooden bridge. So this is kind of better for us because it does mean that the enemy won't be able to use their numbers as effectively. However, this is good because this is our Gallic and Iberian contingent. These troops are not good at holding their position. They're good at charging into the enemy. And these pigs know it, so these pigs are going to try and bail off the battlefield as they should, otherwise they're going to be dinner later. And so we're going to send our Libyan cavalry, which we have 3 contingents of, back to the other crossing, which literally has no enemies opposing it. And they will go way up there to the west to try and outflank the enemy. Meanwhile, Gisco is leading his hoplites and archers back towards the wooden bridge to the east. Hopefully they'll get there in time to stop the enemy advance. And then the swordsmen that we had, the Libyans and the Iberians, will just push across the river and begin outflanking the enemy Syracuse reinforcements, because they do have a few units coming. Not too many, but enough to be of concern. Hopefully we can surround them and destroy them before they can link up with the main enemy contingent. The enemy begins their attack by sending a massive wave of cavalry across the bridge. Thankfully, all of our barbarian units had their own javelins, so they respond appropriately by launching a massive barrage of javelin fire at them, slowing down their charge and killing some of them before they can even get into combat. However, these cavalry units are very well armored, very well skilled. They will not go down very quickly, especially since they're only fighting lightly armored swordsmen. However, we do have Gisco arriving in the background, as I said before. He is with his cavalry contingent, so he can launch a counterattack if absolutely necessary, although he's more of a commander rather than a warrior himself, so he'll be in the back organizing the defense. And then in the far distance over here, way over here to the northwest, you can see the militia of the Karagas are coming in, although they're very limited in numbers, but a lot of them do have javelins and archer combinations to use with us, so that will help out even just a little bit. Here our hoplites are still marching along the riverbank. They're trying to get to the bridge, but because it's so well armored and well shielded, they're going to take a while to get over there still. However, the enemy did not cross the river at the major crossing point, so our cavalry has now gone across and is starting to outflank the enemy general's bodyguard that is out here completely isolated on its own. Although it is a very, very elite personal general bodyguard hoplite unit, so that unit is not going to go down easily. A few minutes pass so, and our hoplites are now in position to help at the bridge. They formed up the second line. We then have our archers also shooting into the right hand side of the enemy, thus getting some easier kills. and we also have Gisco behind them. However, some of our Gallic units are starting to retreat off the battlefield already. They're getting tired because they lose a lot of their momentum after their charge. And these Syracuse and hoplites are now getting into the mix, and they're very well armored and well skilled, well trained. So they are going to prove to be a very worthy adversary to the barbarian units that we have involved. So we're going to have to send forward our hoplites a little bit prematurely, although we won't completely commit them to attacking. We're just basically going to have them push the Gauls forward, so that way it's less likely that they're going to retreat, and it kind of helps them hold their position as well. Behind the enemy, though, we still have their units that are supposed to be reinforcing them, causing us some issues. Our swordsmen and cavalry have now caught up to each other, and they're launching combined flanking counterattacks. However, the Syracusan units are just so freaking tough. I'm not sure what it is. I think it's just high morale and good equipment that's keeping them alive for so long. But our Iberians are not doing anything to this general's bodyguard. We have a cavalry charge coming in as well to help out the Iberians, but it wasn't the best charge in the world, and our cavalry are not necessarily shot cap. So because of that, they will be getting a lot of kills, and the Syracusans will be able to stand their ground for an annoying amount of time, and they're going to be forcing us to actually have some of our troops retreat. The Iberians can't handle it, so then we send in 2 more Libyan units of cavalry to completely sandwich the Syracusan bodyguard. But again, they will take a very long time to do serious damage to such well-trained and well-armored units. They still have 2 more units over here that are being hit by our Libyan swordsmen and cavalry. Their cavalry, though, is going to rout shortly. They do try to flee. Instead, they've run straight into the riverbank, which was a foolish mistake, of course. They realize they can't cross there. They try to turn around, and then they get cut down. So that's good news for us. More good news as well. The Syracusan hoplites are now losing their steam just as we send in more reinforcements from the militia garrison, and our hoplites are now completely committing to the battle on the front lines right there. So we have all of our infantry completely committed to the fight at the bridge, and the Syracusans can't handle it this time around. They're starting to fall back in droves, especially in regards to the hoplites, which is very good because their hoplites are our main concern. Our cavalry can't outflank them and kill them pretty easily, so that's going to be a problem. Speaking of outflanking, though, that single reinforcing Syracusan general's bodyguard is still alive somehow. Although, while they are alive, we are being able to run down a lot of the enemy units that are routing off the field. So we want to chase these guys down before they escape for 2 reasons. 1, so we kill as many of them as we can. 2, so they don't come back to the fight. And one of our Libyan contingents is in charge of this, and they're doing a fantastic job overall. Thankfully, though, we do finally break through that Syracusan reinforcing general who came from Syracuse itself, and now our cavalry will launch the final devastating rear charge against the Syracusan army across the bridge right here. You can see as we zoom in, the Syracusans do turn to face us. However, they only have very lightly armored skirmisher units, whereas they're facing off against well-trained Libyan melee cavalry units. The enemies at the bridge are getting squashed together. They can hardly swing their arms to defend themselves. The Carthaginian hoplites are pushing in, pushing in very, very hard. And the cavalry is coming up to deliver a devastating hammer to the anvil blow from behind. All in all, our hoplites and cavalry are easily going to win the day. And the Syracusan army is annihilated. Looks like Sicily is absolutely open for the taking. And there we have a close victory. The majority of the Syracusan army was wiped out, although we did take serious casualties ourselves. Around half of our army was killed, whereas over 3/4 of the enemies were killed. However, very annoyingly, the Syracusan navy launches a very sneaky counterattack, and they do it in a way that makes, for whatever reason, our Carthaginian army unable to help the city of Acragas. So we will actually lose the city for a single turn. So it won't be the biggest deal in the world, but it will slow us down and will cause us some frustration. although it might stop the city from rebelling too much because we did loot it before, so now we could just take it back and occupy it. Gisco tries to reorganize his men, but we also have the 2nd and 3rd Republican fleets come in and help out to take back Acragas. And the Syracuse Navy is small and it's stuck inside the port. So, while they try to make a breakout, it goes terrible for them. Gisco and Macinthan launch a beautiful two-pronged attack against them, and Acragas falls back into Carthaginian hands once again. Thankfully, they didn't have any time to try and change the building slots around. So, we are back in charge of our southern little stronghold on the city. While all of this has been happening, we're trying to prepare a 2nd army because we do have war with Rome. And while we don't know a lot about these Romans, we do know that they have a lot of resources. They control all of the Italian peninsula and all of Greece. So a 2nd army led by Hannibal Barca, who is the current leader of the Barcid family and dynasty. He is preparing an army inside of Carthage itself. Meanwhile, Gisco is being ordered to reorganize his troops into more combined contingents, so he's mixing Iberians and Gauls together to do what he has to do to form up a proper army, and he is also being sent extra funds to recruit mercenaries from the local population, and some foreign mercenaries will be sent there as well. So while it will take quite a few turns, Gisco's army will recover, and he should do it a lot faster than what the Syracusans can, especially from recruiting from so many different population tiers. We have Numidians, we have Iberians, and Sicilians all getting involved.
Warriors speak of honor and glory.
Seeing this massive military build-up, the Syracusans come groveling for peace. They beg us for peace. However, they don't beg us hard enough, and they refuse to become a client state. That is the only way we would accept any kind of peace with them. They've already thrown dirt in our faces after we offered peaceful negotiations before. So now, since they refuse client statehood, they will instead be annihilated completely. Sicily will belong to Carthage one way or another. And to begin this, the 2nd Carthaginian fleet will be sent to blockade the city of Syracuse in response to the diplomatic failings of their government. There is quite a few troops still inside of the city, however our navy is strong and powerful and it has recovered, so we shouldn't have too many issues there. Meanwhile, the 3rd fleet under Macinthan will be heading north, and they will launch a two-pronged attack with Hannibal, who is now finally in Sicily. Although he didn't finish recruiting his army, he has enough troops to come and help out to take the city. So with him launching an attack from the inland regions, the 3rd fleet will begin launching a blockade of Panormos shortly, and while they're doing that, they will also even come in and land inside of the city and give us an extremely easy victory over the garrison of Panormos. As a result, we won't bother showing you guys that, but you will see the cheeky auto resolve that we did get. Not too bad overall for conquering 2/3 of Sicily within just a few turns after we lost it initially. So far, things are looking pretty good for us. We will not loot the city this time though, and we will resort to just liberating it because we want allies on there. We know we can't match the manpower of the Romans and their allies, for at least not for now. So instead, we're going to liberate Panormos. It's only a small minor settlement that only has fish anyway, so who cares? And hopefully, the people there will be grateful and will be able to use their army to help us. But speaking of massive manpower, the Romans begin launching massive invasions into Sicily, and they begin by sending the 2nd Legion of the Roman army, led by their current consul of the year. It's a pretty elite army, but it's also quite old-fashioned, still using only spears and shields and no swords. So because of that, and the lack of naval transportation, we get an extremely easy victory. And for the simple loss of 65 Carthaginians, over 3,900 Romans are sent to the depths of the Mediterranean to serve Neptune. Massive loss for the Romans for virtually no cost at all to the Carthaginians. This is good for us. However, we can see looking into southern Italy around Cosentia there are 2 more fully stocked Roman legions ready to come towards us. The 4th Legion and the 5th Legion are both ready, and they have some decent commanders. They're not the most experienced, but they have some experience. So, we might not be able to wipe them out as easily. However, what we will wipe out pretty easily is the Syracusans. Once again, they mess up and they try to challenge Carthaginian dominance on the ocean. For whatever reason, they have the idea that they think that they can win. Instead of doing that, though, what they've done is spell their doom entirely. The 2nd Fleet, led by Hannah, will wipe out the Syracusans, where we get an easy victory over their few actual naval vessels, and then their entire garrison and supporting army will be wiped out, and their survivors will once again be sent to the slave markets of Carthage. Now that the enemy has been wiped out from Syracuse, essentially, Gisco, is ready to lead his army towards the garrison. Somehow they still managed to recruit a general and a few units just in time for us to come in and attack. But since the army is still so small and we've already had to deal with so much fighting and whatnot, we move forward Hannibal, who's next to Gisco right here, and we launch a simple auto-resolve of the city. I have a very strong feeling anyway that we're going to have more battles in Syracuse itself against the Romans. So let's get this one out of the way, auto-resolve it, and go ahead and occupy the city. We will not liberate this one. We will not create a little client state-like ally to help us out. So now, for all intents and purposes, all of Sicily is under Carthaginian control. 2 cities are under direct control. Syracuse is wiped out, and we now have a Punic ally that is leading the city of Panormos. Keep in mind, that is a Punic faction, so that's going to be really helpful for us in maintaining friendly relations with them, and hopefully it will keep the Romans from just stonewalling over all of our troops throughout Sicily. But now it's time for us to prepare, and to prepare we have to look around and gather intel. And the intel we gather on the Romans is savage. We see lots of enemy legions out here. We see one, we see a second one right here that's on transports, a third one that's on transports. All of them are hanging around and leaving and coming to Greece. So that's going to be extremely dangerous, combined with the 2 legions stationed in Cassentia. And now that we own all of Sicily, these legions have a clear target to march towards, and that is, of course, Syracuse. So we need to try and be proactive with our fleet while also being defensive with our armies before we can try and gather peace with the Romans. And it doesn't seem like that's going to be happening anytime soon, as we get the event pop up, the Punic Wars. And with the city of Syracuse itself falling, the Romans launch not only their legions towards us, but also their diplomatic overtures. They are furious with Carthaginian presence being so close to Italy, and despite it being the Carthaginians' right to claim Sicily, as it has been for hundreds of years, the Romans continue their march. We get a bunch of money for completing objectives, which is always a nice little bonus, but then we continue marching with our fleets. We don't have time to sit back and wait for the enemy to try and launch all of their legions towards us, so we're going to go hunt them down in Greek waters. Here we're on the edge of the Adriatic and the greater Mediterranean, and we catch out the 1st Legion, the Star Legion of the Roman army. In fact, one of their best leaders, who is the other consul for the year, is leading this legion, and once again they failed to provide appropriate escorts for it. We will simply auto-resolve them away, although we will ransom them from our captivity. So we will get a lot of money for it, and we'll continue rebuilding that goodwill with the Romans. We do want to get peace with them, hopefully in the near future, as just for the sake of this campaign, I don't want to kill Rome too quickly. I want them to last a long time, although we have to do what we got to do to survive. So that is 2 consuls of the Roman Republic that have been killed, 2 legions that have been wiped out for essentially no cost to the Carthaginian cause. Continuing our naval combat and aggression, though, we send the 2nd Republican fleet towards the city of Apollonia. Now, while we quite clearly cannot hope to take the city itself, what we are doing is forcing a legion that is currently stationed on transport ships to be blockaded in the city. So if they want to break out, They can, but they're going to have to take on a Carthaginian navy at the same time, and we've all seen how poorly that goes for the Romans so far. Despite that, though, despite their failure in their recent history on the ocean, the 6th Legion of Rome is now being sent against the 2nd Republican Carthaginian fleet. We wipe it out extremely easily. And then there's also a small little 3rd Naval Roman fleet that's sent out from Greece specifically to try and attack the 3rd Republican fleet of Carthage. Thankfully, though, our fleet was more than prepared to deal with this little puny threat. The Romans still have not mastered the seas, and they never shall. Essentially, so far, we have complete control of the seas despite our initial naval losses to Carthaginian pirates. But then, a turn later, and the 2 Roman legions that were stationed at Cassentia are now inside of Sicily. They're just a few kilometers north of Syracuse itself, but so is Hannibal and Gisco, 2 of the best commanders of the Carthaginian army at this time. They are ready to take on the Roman legions and defend Syracuse, and they will do so in the next episode. However, ladies and gentlemen, before we get to that, I once again, of course, want to send out a strong and sincere thank you to our modders who have helped provide a very unique experience for you all in this playthrough, and to our channel members. Thank you, modders Manco and Swaraj. Channel members Stefan, Parrot, Evernight, and HK, I appreciate all of your support. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I shall see you all in the next one.